Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Something that we've really seen sort of shift quite a bit recently is the close range meta, because obviously we've had a lot of weapon tuning over the course of the past couple of major updates. We had the season 5 reloaded update, we had a weapon tuning after that. So I've been seeing a lot of people ask, Zach, what are the go-to close range weapons? What is the current close range meta? So today we are answering exactly that. We are breaking down what I think the best close range weapons in all of Warzone right now specifically are. So as we go through everything, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. Would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new to the channel or if you have not already subscribed, feel free to do so. That way you can always stay up to date with absolutely everything going on in COD, news, intel, updates, loadouts, tips. It is all right here every single day. Also, season 6 is coming up. If you want to grab anything from the G Fuel site, now is a great time to do so. Code Immortal always has it covered with that spicy little discount if you're trying to grab a new tub, a shaker cup, starter pack, anything like that. So first up, we can't go without mentioning the Cold War AK47 if we're talking about the close range meta, because when it comes to rifles, this is the close range rifle in the game. Of course, we used to have things like the XM4 and like the FFAR that dominated the close range meta as rifles, but since those have been nerfed and adjusted over the course of time, the Cold War AK has absolutely become that new #1 choice for a close range rifle. This thing's damage up close is almost unbeatable in a lot of cases. It is a bit harder to use than some of the other weapons on this list for sure. Its recoil is a bit more noticeable, its mobility is not as good, but when it comes to the damage output, this thing has one of the best in the game, especially for close range fights. Now, when it comes to the first attachment, most players are going to go for the basic suppressor. Grew suppressor, though, is an option here because that is going to help out with the control some, and obviously you get a tad bit better range, so it'll be a bit better for like some medium range fights and whatnot. But really, you can't go wrong with either. In this case, I always go for the basic suppressor because honestly, in close range fights, recoil is really not all that hard to control just because you're aiming at a bigger target. It's easier to land shots. I actually don't go for a barrel on my close range AK setup. This thing's range, velocity, power, it's good enough without needing that extra barrel on there, so you don't have to waste an attachment in this spot. If you wanted to, Liberator is probably what I'd recommend because it doesn't slow you down too much. RPK is definitely a big no-go here, but honestly, like I said, I don't think you need one. Instead, we're going for a Tiger Team Spotlight, get some better mobility out of that. I do still run the Spetsnaz grip just to help contain that recoil a little bit. It's more so there for like some of those medium range fights that you'll get into if you're using this for sniper support or even as a secondary on another main primary. I'm gonna go for the basic 45 round mags. You don't really need anything bigger than that for close range engagements. It's just not super necessary, especially with the damage that you're putting out here. Then lastly, I like to go for the Microflex LED. If you like the base iron sights and you're comfortable with those in, 10 to 40 meter fights, you could always go for something like a skeletal stock, or even go for something like the GRU elastic wrap and get a snappier ADS. Another weapon we can't go without mentioning when we're talking about the close range meta is the Modern Warfare MP5. When it comes to the TTK, after all the recent adjustments that we've seen to the SMG meta in specific, the MW-MP5 does actually have one of the best TTKs for close range fights. Whether you're hitting headshots, neck shots, chest shots, it doesn't matter. This thing's power is actually really, really good right now if you're comparing it to some of the other SMGs in the game. However, it is a Modern Warfare weapon, so you have to deal with that sort of lack of mobility, and when you build it out, you are making it slower because the attachments on MW weapons just aren't good compared to the Cold War weapons, where we have things like the Bruiser grip and the Tiger Team Spotlight. So unfortunately, you're gonna lose in the mobility category, which is a big deal for a lot of close range fights. That's why even though this does have a great TTK, I don't think it's the best sub in the game, but it is fantastic for close range fights regardless. You just have to get used to the fact that your mobility is not going to be, tier 1 compared to some of the Cold War SMGs. But of course, here we're starting off with the monolithic integral suppressor. You got to go for the Merc foregrip, get that insane hipfire accuracy. Something that this weapon has over all the Cold War weapons is the fact that it's almost like 100% accurate in close range fights, even when you're hip firing, just because it's so broken for Modern Warfare weapons. Of course, we're going for the 45 round mags. I go for the sleight of hand perk on there just because that faster reload is pretty crucial, especially if you're running into multiple players at a time. Then lastly, you got to go for the collapsible stock, get some better mobility on there and sort of help out in that regard. Then moving on, we've got a personal favorite of mine, the MAC-10. It's gonna let you fly and fry. Its TTK up close is not the best out of the SMG category, but this thing is great for sniper support because it does have a bit of an extended range versus a lot of other subs in the game. It also has some of the best mobility stats in the entire game, and its recoil is also super simple. At this point, everyone is familiar and comfortable with the Mac. They know how to use it. They know where it's good. So it's a very familiar weapon with the general player base. That's why it's used so much. And if it sucked, players wouldn't use it even though they're comfortable with it. I mean, you look at weapons like the Grau and the Kilo that have dropped so much in usage just because they're not, you know, super competitive anymore. That's not the case with the MAC-10. It can hold its own in close range fights, even though it's not going to be the most powerful SMG in the world. This is pretty much the basic Cold War setup here, though. Agency suppressor, of course, we got to go for the task force barrel. Tiger team spotlight to let us fly just a little bit faster. The 53 round mag on there is also super crucial. And then finally, the Raider stock for some better mobility. Like I said, pretty basic Cold War setup, but hey, it still works. Now, another absolute beast up close is going to be the OTS. This thing did see some nerfs recently, so it's going to take a more accurate player to still be that beast that it once was. But if you're able to consistently land chest, neck, and headshots, its TTK is still utterly phenomenal. Its mobility is absolutely unreal. Like, its mobility stats are pretty much unmatched in this game, even when you compare some of the other best mobility weapons we've got. Like, you are going to literally fly with this thing at hyperspeed. It's phenomenal. I love it for that. And so, like, all around, it's a great, super aggressive weapon and phenomenal for the current close range meta. Like I said, though, it does take a bit more skill to use. And of course, I'm sure you guys know this by now, but we are going for the basic Cold War copy and paste once again. We're going for, obviously, Gru Suppressor, Task Force, Tiger Team. The fast mag in this case, just because that reload is actually insanely quick and the ADS is already pretty solid. You could go for the skeletal stock. Personally, though, I like to go for the serpent wrap. You get some of that ADS back that you lose on that fast mag, and it's still incredibly snappy and super great for CQB engagements. And then the final weapon I want to talk about is the PPSH. This thing is sort of that very forgiving, super useful SMG right now that I think is great for a lot of different modes. Solos, duos, it's got you covered. It has the mobility. It has the larger mag, like you're good to go. Trios and quads, I feel like it especially thrives because you can actually go ahead, you can put on that 71 round drum. It really doesn't hurt your mobility all that much, but you can get double kills, triple kills, sometimes even wipe a whole squad without even having to worry about reloading, which is just, you know, unmatched in terms of an SMG's capabilities here. So this thing is an absolute beast in that regard. Its damage, especially chest, neck, and headshots, is going to be great. Unfortunately, the class setup is pretty much the same old, same old. It's not something we've never seen before. Gru, Task Force, Tiger Team, the largest magazine possible, and then also the Raider stock in this case. Absolute beast, super consistent, and again, just like some of the other SMGs we've already talked about, incredibly reliable in that about 0 to 12 meter range. So in my opinion, that is the close range meta here in Warzone right now. Those are the best options you have if you're fighting in those super hectic and up close engagements. All great options here. You can't really go wrong with any of them. Hopefully this video helped you guys out, though. If it did, let me know by dropping a like on it. It would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new to the channel or if you have not already subscribed, feel free to do so. That way you can always stay up to date with absolutely everything going on in Call of Duty. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.